I've got a couple questions to start you guys off with while we're waiting for people to answer or to ask their questions. So kind of the first question I have for you is, what is the purpose of budgeting? And Michelle, I don't know if you want to answer that first for us. Kind of give us a quick answer.
Sure. I believe the purpose of budgeting is just to understand where your money goes. If you put together a budget and you're honest about it, it's going to really give you an idea of where you're spending money. I think we all have an idea of where we spend money on a regular basis. However, when you put it down on paper and you put it in a budget form, then you really see where that money's going.
Perfect. Do you have anything to add to that, Haley?
That's pretty much what I would think too. It's just it helps you better understand where your money is going to help you understand where you could possibly be saving.
Perfect. Great answers, ladies. So the next question I have for you, there's probably a lot of different ways you can do a budget. What are some of the ways you guys budget personally that you think would be helpful for other people to know? And what are some other budgeting methods that you've seen that have worked really well for people?
One of the ways that I budget personally would be to have a certain amount of your paycheck go into a separate account that you never see. You probably wouldn't have as easy access to that account. It's a completely separate account. And if it already comes directly from your paycheck into that account, you never really see it, and it's a lot harder to spend. And if you don't have a debit card or things like that, another way is really just filling out a budget sheet. Even if you have to do it every month, it helps you keep track of really where you're spending, and if you're not keeping on track of your budget, why that's happening and what you can do in the future to make sure that you're still keeping on track with that.
Perfect. Do you have anything to add then,
Yeah.
Michelle?
One method I've used before is getting a calendar out, so a large monthly calendar, which gets really cheap this time of year after the new year, and then putting down what date the bills, your payments are due and what day's payday is, so you can kind of analyze where things are going, and then add in things like gas. So when you go spend gas, put that on the calendar so you can kind of see and get that picture, that visual for the next month.
Perfect. Those are excellent examples, and I think a lot of times people kind of get overwhelmed when they're starting a budget. Like, where do you start? So if somebody's never budgeted before and they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, what are some tips you guys could give someone in that position to kind of get started and feel motivated, not feel so overwhelmed with that idea of putting together their budget for the first time?
I think one good thing to do is just to continue to do it. So you're not gonna hit it the first month, you're not gonna hit it the second month, but if you continue to do that and make a plan, that's gonna help you in the long run.
Do you have anything to add to that, Haley?
I would say to start out, the first thing that you really need to do is to fill out a budget calculator. We do have one of these on our website. If you want to check that out, it's downloadable, very easy, it's fillable, but you have to kind of start putting it on paper before you can even see where your money is going and how to budget correctly.
Perfect. Great answers, ladies. So kind of on that same theme, one of the tips people will give in blogs or little quick tips is always, you got to cut out that Starbucks every day and that's where you're going to save the money. Is that really true? If you cut out your $5 cup of coffee every day, how much are you really saving by doing that, and does it make an impact on your budget over the long haul?
Sure. I think I'm not a coffee drinker myself, but I work with a lot of people who drink coffee every day, and I don't want them to stop that cold turkey. Cutting back on 1 or 2 a week, and trying to cut back there. And if you put together a budget, you can find multiple places to cut back. Therefore, it ends up saving in the end.
Sure. Anything to add to that, Haley?
I would just say that if you're cutting back on those things, you should be putting that money into savings rather than just leaving it maybe in your account, because then you might think, well, I have this extra money anyway, so now I'll spend it on something different, and you might not even realize you're doing that. You're just kind of doing it subconsciously. So if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to cut this certain thing out a week and it costs me $10 a week, well, now I'm going to have an automatic transfer that transfers $10 into my savings account a week because I'm not spending that money on what I was before.
Awesome. Great advice, ladies. That's perfect. So you kind of led into my next question, which is, if you're putting money away into a savings account, is there a savings account that people should be considering that maybe isn't at the top of their list? It's not that traditional savings account that you would open at a bank or credit union. Is there another type of savings account people should be considering to save money in? Excuse me.
Yeah, so there are definitely a couple different types of savings accounts. depending on how much you can save. There are money market accounts that we have here, depending on how much you have. Once your balance starts to get bigger and bigger, you can earn more interest on those, which is making you money just by saving. We do have other savings accounts like a Wincentive account, which makes it a little easier for you to save, because when you put money in there, you get entered in to win a chance to win more money, which you can use however you want. So essentially, you're giving yourself a chance to win even more money to save. Sometimes, you feel like you just want to have it in your regular savings account so you can still access it. These other savings accounts, the money is still accessible. There are ways to, get it out, but you're essentially giving yourself a chance to either win money or just earn more interest on money that you already have set aside and you're not really doing anything with.
Awesome. Anything to add to that, Michelle?
I think if a lot of times people have trouble at Christmas time saving money or having money to do gifts, so they end up putting it on a credit card and then paying it off later. You can put money into a Christmas club account on a regular basis throughout the year, and then get that money put out right before Christmas, so you can have money to spend on the holiday without having to go into debt.
Awesome. Good advice, ladies. So that kind of leads me into my next question. We talk a little bit about debt and savings. Sometimes those are, they're polar opposites, right? So what should be a bigger goal for someone? Is it to pay debt off first, or to build that first, $500 savings account? What should take priority? Because I think that's a confusing point for a lot of people.
I'm a believer in doing both at one time if possible. It's important, obviously, to pay that debt, but it's also important to have a savings built up, so if something comes up, your engine goes out in your car, your furnace goes out during the cold Minnesota winter, if you've got a savings built up and you're starting to do that, you don't go into additional or more debt at that point. So that'd be my advice.
Anything to add to that, Haley?
No, I agree that, yes, I agree that you should be doing both. I think it kind of depends on everyone's personal situation as well. If you have debt that is coming with very high interest, you might want to stop at a lower point on your savings before you start paying to the debt, versus if you have debts that have really low interest, and you can kind of split it up between the two. But again, you have to really analyze your own personal situation, and maybe even talk to a member advisor or a lender advisor here at the credit union. They can help you, show you what can get paid off sooner. And when you get things paid off sooner, you can essentially save more money, so it kind of helps both ways.
Perfect. Awesome. That's really helpful advice. I guess that kind of leads into another question I have for you. Is it more important to save first, or save what's left at the end of the month? Does savings need to be a line item in your budget in order for it to be a successful savings plan, or do you see people successfully saving what's left at the end of the month as well?
For my own personal, I have to do it early. It's really easy to do an automatic transfer right at the same day as payday. So the money comes in, the money goes into a savings account right away, so it's not there for me to spend. Because that whole savings at the end of the month, I can think of all kinds of things that would come up between the 20th and the 30th of the month to spend that money on that I don't need to do, but might do that rather than saving it. So to me, to budget for it is to plan for it and put it in right away.
Sure. Anything to add to that, Haley?
Again, I would say just looking at your personal situation, I would usually always make sure all the bills are paid and everything like that first. It just gives me a better sense of making sure that I'm on track with my budget, and then saving a portion of what I have left. But again, it works different for everybody, and it really depends on your personal situation.
Sure. Excellent. So we do have a viewer question. So Evan, thank you for leaving a comment for us. And her question is, how can I get more from my savings without investing a larger amount into something like a money market account? So maybe she doesn't have that threshold to meet that $2,000 minimum balance to start earning that extra interest. What is a good way for her to earn some better interest rate without having to have that high dollar amount to start with?
Let me go?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that I would suggest is we run credit or CD specials from time to time. So if you're saving for something and kind of the time frame, or if you're just saving in general, to put some of your savings account into a certificate. That's a good way to save. The nice part about that is you can get to the money, you can access it, but also there's potentially an early payoff penalty, so that way it kind of holds you to that. It disciplines you to leave the money there for that time frame For instance, right now we're at 2.85 for 15 months. So that definitely jumps that rate up for you, and you can use a portion of your savings, or you can use all of it at that point.
Excellent. Anything to add to that, Haley?
No, I would agree that a CD would be the best way to go if you're not wanting to move towards a money market. Otherwise, you're just gonna kind of stick with that regular interest rate on your savings account.
Sure. Good. Hopefully that answers your question, Evan. If not, feel free to ask another question in the comments. And anyone who's watching, feel free to leave any questions you have about budgeting and saving for our two experts here in the comments as well. And tag your friends and family if you think that they would be interested in this topic, and kind of get them involved in the conversation. So as we're waiting for some more people to leave their questions for us, I've got a couple more here. There's a lot of different kind of savings plans and theories, I guess, out there. You know, you hear about Dave Ramsey, and there's all kinds of people out there telling you what to do. And a lot of times, one of the big things they say is to have an emergency fund. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and why it's important to have an emergency fund built up as kind of your first, savings goal, so to speak?
Sure. To me, it's daunting if something happens and I don't have the money for it. So right now, personally, I have a washing machine at home that's not working. So it's a matter of, well, do we pay to fix it, or do we just buy a new one? And having an emergency fund is kind of helping us make that decision a little bit. The emergency fund's not as big as I want it to be to buy a new one, so we're going to fix it. So for us, it's looking at what might come up. So whether it's the car, or it's something for the house, or something for the kids. Trying to have something so that when panic happens, I need to wash clothes and I don't want to do it, outside my home. Therefore, having that emergency fund is helping us get to that point. So, to me, it's personal, like you've said about some other things, but trying to have just some amount of money there that I don't have to put a new washing machine on a credit card.
Sure. Haley, anything to add to that?
I think the biggest thing too with an emergency fund is just a peace of mind. When it comes to money, it can be very stressful. And if something happens, your car breaks down, if you have that emergency fund, you can get it fixed right away, and you don't have to deal with everything that comes along with that, taking your kids to daycare or missing work because you're waiting on a loan to see if you can get money to help, which might take a day or two. And it really just, a peace of mind is honestly a good thing to have when it comes to money, because it is hard these days, and having that emergency fund can really lessen that stress for you.
Awesome. Great answers, ladies. So I'm not seeing any other questions coming in from viewers, so I will go ahead and ask another one that I have prepared for you guys. So when kind of circling back around to budgets, what can someone do if they are constantly going over and spending more than they have every month? Maybe it's because they just do have that many bills, or maybe they're spending a lot more at Target than they expected. Like, what are some maybe mental tricks that you kind of give some of our members to do when they're sitting in your office and trying to figure out how to get their budget back in control? What are some tips you can give somebody who's struggling with constantly overspending?
I would say there's a couple different things you can try. Delete online shopping apps from your phone. You might not realize that that's kind of just a habit that you do. It's a way to cut down on things that you might not necessarily need. You can try ordering your groceries online. I know it doesn't seem like it would save you any money because you might buy the same thing at the store, but honestly, if you make a list and you buy it on the app, you aren't really just shopping versus what you see at the store and buying maybe things you didn't need and you just went there and got them. You really just have to take a hard look at what you're spending, and there's just little tiny things that you could do that can save you a lot of money, and sometimes you don't realize that you might just be spending money because you're bored and things like that, and it really doesn't seem like it at the time, but if you take a look at those, you might be able to cut down in areas like that.
Awesome. Anything to add to that, Michelle?
Yeah, I think, taking a look at that Target receipt once you've got it. What are the things that you're putting on there that, that you're buying, that you went for some things that you needed for your house, and then you added a bunch of other items to it.
Sure. Excellent. Well, I think we aren't getting any more viewer questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So ladies, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and sharing all your tips and advice and expert knowledge about saving and budgeting with me. Thank you everyone for watching, and this will be on our Facebook page hopefully forever at this point. You can come back and watch it anytime. If you ever have questions about budgeting, savings, debt, anything, please just reach out to one of our member service representatives. They have tons of information that they can share with you, and it's free. Thanks for watching.